contractor, I can't hold these numbers because they're gonna be going up. So that's all we can really say now, because that's what we're seeing. Do I hope they will. I mean, I hope they seem like they should. I mean, it seems like, you know, as soon as we get past some of the demand, and that's part of it. The people in some of the products in the detention industry, I think they can basically name the products. Because it's, if you want it, you gotta pay for it.
Thank you.
Greg, considering economies of scale, do you see a significant difference in a 104 bed facility refitted that you guys just did versus an 85 or 86 bed facility?
I mean, if you're taking out cells, that is the, I mean, a cell, it used to be about $28,000 a cell. Right now, they're being budgeted at $45,000 a cell. And so, that's, will it stay at 45? I don't know. I'm hoping that comes down with when the demand comes down. But it's the cells that, if you're taking all,
That's the biggest
if you're taking
factor.
20 cells out, yeah, you'll save a lot of money.
Okay.
Because it's not only the cell, it's the mezzanine, the steel grating for the mezzanine, the steel stairs.
So this is being budgeted at 45,000 a cell?
Yes.
What's the lead time on a cell now, at 45,000?
I don't, that's usually not an issue because if you buy those at bid time, you're putting your order in. By the time you need them, you've got to put up steel. So
Year and
it's
a half.
not, oh no, it wouldn't take, it wouldn't be that long. But you wouldn't need them typically until proper time has passed. It probably wouldn't be delaying things. What's gonna be delaying things is getting steel in the job. That's usually, it's just like a pre-engineered little building, it's out 7, 8, 9 months. You know, you can't do anything until you get foundations in, and then you sit and wait 7 months.
Just yes, right now. If we said yes today, how long would it take to build this facility?
If, I'm gonna say, if probably 2.5 years.
And
I mean, typically, you could do it in a year and a half, easy, 15 months, maybe.
previously, so it was previously 18 months now,
15 to 18 months,
and now it's 2.5 years.
if you can't, get started because you can't get steel, you're just sitting there that long. And again, some of these numbers are guesses because this is, all the ones that we have that we've designed have been under construction. They kind of started in construction before things got crazy. We haven't had any started construction 4 months ago. So, that's, a few of the
How about cold steel, went up 15% versus November?
And you can't, you know, we're designing things now with steel beams instead of joists, because it's cheaper to put in a beam than it is the joists are so far out, and it's almost the same cost. Beams versus joists, so, it's just creating, you know, different ways of doing things, because that's what we've gotta react to the
see if anybody out there has a question. We still have 37 minutes yet on our meeting, so. Well,
I still like to hear from the
you
sheriff.
still like to hear from the sheriff?
Because I think this is his first time of seeing this design,
Okay.
and he's got concerns of security, because if we eliminate cells, I think we need to, but if we eliminate cells, then you got classifications, and people can't be around people because of your gang-related issues, which we do have here in Carroll County.
Okay, so could I call up? Sure, let him do it, ask.
I guess, where I come from currently is, as I refer to it, the ongoing, liability risk radar that we are on. We've had many, actually during, my term in office, we've not passed many state jail inspections. As we know, those become public record at some point. So the liability is of one of my greatest concerns, in not taking any action. I will, as a side note, mention to, ladies and gentlemen, that, I've had taxpayers approach me about that if the county is not going to do anything as far as a new facility, would there be consideration of repealing the tax that's currently in place and returning those funds back to the taxpayers? So, but I would much rather see the county to be proactive, progressive, again, from the aspect of, potential liability down the road. As you heard me say before, it would only take one spark from one individual. The other thing to consider, as far as a potential suit down the road, doesn't necessarily have to be an individual that's currently in our jail. It could be past inmates that come on board. I don't generally like to speak in a cynical or negative tone, but I guess I consider what I'm talking about as potential realities that could happen. So, I obviously, I was accused at one time of wanting a new jail so I could have my name on plaque in the public lobby. I shared that with a few of you. At this stage, that's not gonna happen. My concern is for the whole community, the county, and moving forward progressively in what we think is the best for this county, and to continue. I've been with the county for 35+ years now, and we've seen this time and again, and many of you gentlemen can attest to that. It's time to make a decision, either yes or no, and live with our decision.
On this new plan that Greg just showed us, if we were to eliminate beds, which I think we're probably gonna have to, what kind of strain would that put on you as the sheriff as keeping inmates separated?
As you well know, formerly being in our business, there's a classification system. And we should make every effort to adhere to that. If we don't, again, that liability issue, in my opinion, and based on my knowledge, enters the equation again. So, to scale back, I guess I'll comment that if anything's better than nothing, in my opinion. So, my only concern is potentially on down the line, in a very short amount of time, we would have to be adding additional space. We all know how society in general can be nowadays, and what could potentially happen, particularly having progressive economic development potentially occurring in our area. I've heard for years that, as the saying goes, with progress comes progress. And there's some truth to that. And I think Lafayette City itself can attest to that right now. I'm not picking on Lafayette, I'm just saying, we all read what's going on in Lafayette.
Sheriff, I'd like to make a statement, and I'd like for you to tell me if I'm wrong or not on this. As I look back historically, I can remember the jail before this one. And I think it had, what, 10, 12 beds in it?
16?
16?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so then in the eighties, we doubled the size of it to 30-some. And now 40 years later, we're looking at having to, I mean, in the eighties, they thought this is a big jail, we're set, boy. Now we're looking at it again. The explosion or growth of the crime industry is all around us. And I would bet every one of you sitting here can think of people that you know of that ought to have their rear end in that jail right now, okay? Now, when we looked at it the last time, we had some people, and I'm not saying any of you, I don't remember where it came, but we had some people say, well, how do you know the prices are gonna go up? They may go down. Well, they didn't. They're way up. And I don't, my bet, and if I had any money, would lay it up there and bet it, that we're just getting started on this inflation stuff. We've got at least 3 more years of it. And as far as the liability thing that the sheriff is talking about here, there are legal organizations, I don't want to single on any of them, but legal organizations who do nothing but look for things like this to file suit. And we are in non-compliance. We are not compliant with state rules, federal rules. As long as we are in the process of doing something about it, we're a little more safe than we would be otherwise. If we just back away and say, no, we're not gonna do it. We're gonna have groups out here ready, willing, and able to file lawsuits against us. And they're gonna be lining up not only prisoners, but as the sheriff says, ex-prisoners who would love to sign their name on because they don't have to pay a dime for this suit. We have to pay for it. And we are gonna be in trouble because the documentation says already we're not compliant. We're not meeting the rules. Now, we get a copy of the review that the sheriff does every year. And the way I remember, there's about 300 items on there that we're judged on. Most of them we're all right on. And you go down there, jail's clean, looks nice. Every time I've been down there, the food looked good. But there are so many things that we don't have, don't have, that we're in trouble. Now, if it were up to me, just my guy from Cutler opinion, I'd say, I don't care if you stick 5 people to a cell, that's all right with me. You know, we hear about the sheriff from Arizona that put tents out behind barbed wire or chain link fence. We can't get by with that. So, I am very leery of going too small, because I think in 8 or 10 years, we're gonna need more than what we're building right now. I've been at this now for probably 18 years. And I was not at all in favor of building when I started. And clear back there, Clara Ryder and I went down and we went through the new Tippecanoe County Jail when it was just gravel on the floor and they're building it. And it's a massive thing. And they've expanded and expanded since then because that didn't do it. I'm worried. We have to look at the money, I understand that. I don't want to drown anybody taxation-wise, I think we're too close to that already. What do we do? once that goes to court and a federal judge looks at it, he won't say, well, let's see, what's your budget now? They don't give a darn. They'll say, this is what you're gonna build. This is what you're gonna build. And if it's $24 million, then we're gonna have to come up with $24 million. We gotta do something. I don't have anything else to say. Sheriff, did I overspeak anything?
No, sir, I would agree with many of the points you brought up, Commissioner. I would agree. As I said in the beginning, my concern is the potential litigation. I don't want to come across as chicken little, the sky is falling attitude, but again, as I said earlier, these are potential realities that we should face. And I toyed with, to be honest with you, Sheriff John Place, he's the Vigo County Sheriff in Terre Haute. Vigo County is currently under a federal mandate to build a new county jail. And the sheriff has offered to come up and speak to both groups here. At this point, seeing what I felt like was potential progress here, I told the sheriff, I said, hold off. I said, don't. And his reply to me with a slight grin was, you have me on speed dial, don't you? Because he said, I would like to come up and tell your group what the headaches are, and what we're up against in Vigo County. So, and he's a first-term sheriff.
I know a little about the Vigo County situation in that every member of the council, all 7 there, and all 3 commissioners were ordered by the federal judge to come in and stand in front of them and explain why their jail wasn't any good, didn't meet up to it. And there was a very implicit part to that of, you better come up with some answers, or we have jail space up here for you. And that's the 10 up here. It's time to do something. It was time to do something. I was wrong. It was time to do something 15 years ago. It was time to do something a year ago. It's time to do something now.
If I may quickly speak too, I know Commissioner Hilton and I have had a number of conversations in regard to this. I know my predecessor, Sheriff Tony Burns, and back with Commissioner Hilton was previously in office. Our price tag back then was $10 million, as I recall. We've doubled that now.
Yeah, we're over double.
Yeah. So, to believe that it's gonna get any cheaper, I don't buy it.
Your thoughts on building the stages, like the sheriff was talking about?
You know, ironically, that was a good point you brought up. I did, though I can't recall the exact source, I did speak with someone in my office recently that's not directly connected with jail construction, but the question did come up, or the statement, I should say, was that we have the potential of building in phases that we might want to consider as affordable to the county. So, my only concern is if, you know, how much potentially will the price increase by delaying and coming on board with that additional phase? I don't know.
Is there a potential of building so many cells out here and still using these cells up here?
Yes.
You'd have to do the upgrades, then it would be compliance.
Right.
Yeah, cause it's not all just overcrowded.
Right.
Well, we was at a meeting this week, and he showed me a picture, an image, tearing a piece of metal off the floor that long and handed it to his jail deputy. That's how bad we're getting inside of our jail. And I'm like, well, thank God we got some good inmates to turn stuff over like that, cause he had one that wasn't very good. It'd be a problem.
Ted, do we have a potential of getting any of that COVID money for this project?
Only for certain components of the jail.
Lights?
I think environmental issues, air handling.
Or
That's what,
medically tied in also.
yeah, medically.
Yeah.
American.
Yeah.
Our,
Are, yeah. And I will speak to that real quick. I did have a conversation with Sheriff Marcus Gatton in Whitley County, Columbia City, and they are looking to, they may have already started, I honestly don't know, but looking at a new county jail up there, and they are tapping in, if you will, to ARP funding, and are actually engaging Baker Tilly to put that request together for them in Whitley County as it relates to ARP funds.
Because all that money wouldn't cover the increase in costs.
No, and like I stated, if we approach this, cause I'm 100% behind doing something. And Bill, I concur with you, we have to do something. We should have done it 3 or 4, 5, whatever period of time ago. But if we piecemeal, and that sounds, it's got a negative context, I understand that, but if we take this bite by bite, step by step, utilizing some of the ARP money, and begin the process, and even if we don't finish the second floor cells, because I think, Greg, you had alluded to, you know, the cells are $45,000 a piece. If we leave some of the steel out initially, but still get us to 60, 70, how many are on the first floor? Do you know that right off the top of your head?
Of cells, it's,
42?
well, probably 44 maybe.
It's not quite enough, but if we begin doing that and just begin taking steps,
Right. I think what your idea had, Mr. Ayers, is go ahead and build the cell part, leave the administration out. And we've got fine people in the community, we've got wonderful contractors here that could probably step in and do it cheaper, you know, and help out their communities.
I wanna hear your comment, yeah.
I'd just like to make a comment to the conditions that jail's in currently, just to weigh in on leaving part of it out even. I work on there on a regular basis. Toby calls me, some of the jailers, whoever, and I'm dreading the day that I get a call that I can't fix it. It is infrastructurally, electrically, control-wise for that jail, it is so old, it's so antiquated. I cannot get parts. I have to make parts for what I can repair out there. There's a lot of parts out there that we can't repair anymore. I believe the back door system doesn't work anymore. I can't get the parts to fix it. They're gone. I've surface mounted parts inside there that I'm sure attest to some of the code violations that Toby gets to. Why? The infrastructure is shot. It is spent. The main breaker out there on that electric panel, I'm afraid to exercise. It's been so long since anybody knows it's moved. I was, not too long ago, I was afraid we tripped it out there when I got called out there, because I'm afraid it's not gonna reset. The control room out there is so packed with all the equipment that's needed to operate 911, I can't move in there, I can't function in there. If they have a fire, you are not going to have anything left in the operations center. My opinion is, as a taxpayer and as a contractor, that if you're gonna go forward, this needs to be one thing. If we can use that facility for something else, I think that's great, but to try to get our lifelines, in my mind, this community, that continue to operate out of there for 911 or the sheriff's department, it doesn't make any sense. You're gonna have issues, they're gonna cost you way more money when it's all said and done. I'd also like to just ask, and Coke can expand on this some more, conversations I've had with him and other officers in the county, we house a lot of people outside this community for other events, we spend a lot of money for that. For them to be in White County, Tippecanoe County, wherever county is housing them, transporting and so forth. You know, I'd urge you guys to look at what those expenses are that we're spending, where we could keep them here, and or offer those services to other counties that may need bed space ourselves, and look at what kind of money that might generate and bring into the community. Not necessarily create profit for the community, but to help pay for this gym, so.
Can you introduce yourself, Todd? I don't think everybody knows who you are.
Todd Price, I own WP Electric here in Background.
Thank you, Doug.
One thing to remember is that a jail is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all the time. I mean, I live in a 105-year-old house. The jail's only 40-some years old. Thank goodness, my house hasn't been lived in by the kind of residents that live in there. I mean, Ethan grew up in it, but he wasn't that distracted. That's a whole different animal than what we have to deal with down there. And
Well, they gave us a budget of 16.5, so we need to work with Elvatus and see what we need to do here on this new design, or Toad needs to see what he can cut out to get us to that number. But 16.5 is the total cost. We still got easement to put in, we still got utilities to put in. That's gonna be a couple million, I believe, right off the top.
Well, and during you guys' meeting a week ago yesterday, speaking with RDC and
yeah,
Steve, you actually asked the question, I appreciate that, to see what involvement they could provide.
That's already been contemplated in the 16.5.
Huh?
That's contemplated in the 16.5.
Is it? Okay.
good, glad to hear that.
Well, I mean, but don't we still need a commitment from them to do that?
We don't have a number yet.
We need one of our people who sit
Yeah.
on the board to present it to them. I think you've done that, haven't you, Joe? Talked to them. Cause, what was it here? Can't remember the gentleman's name. Larry Kraft said it hasn't been presented in an open meeting.
It's been, there's been no formal request, but that, the County Road 100, infrastructure is a planned development for the RDC, the south side of County Road 100.
Right.
So, I mean, they were going, that was a planned development anyway, so it's not necessarily in the timing that they would have done it. But
And his concern is what type of utilities and what size needs to go through there, because who knows what's going on the south side of the 100 north.
But this does also in the utilities, right?
That would have, in that construction cost number, because we had that,
What's that?
in the last year's bid also.
My concern about the stage building is, okay, so I'm just gonna use some off-the-wall numbers, so you go out and you take 10 million and you build the first stage. You still have to repay that 10 million, you're still gonna have those funds going out, and we're sitting here saying that probably things aren't gonna go down as much, so I don't understand why stage building is gonna be any benefit, because you're still gonna have to make those payments and find the money going
For the
down the
future
road.
build.
Yeah, you're gonna have the $10 million loan the first time, then say you're gonna have a $10 million loan the second time, you still have to make that payment. So I don't think the stage building is any benefit to the problem we're trying to see. It's,
I think we're all just grasping at straws, but how can we get this done? I would like to think that if we told the 10 of us here, we wouldn't have anybody say, no, we're not gonna do anything.
I think that's been the situation for well over a year and a half, 2 years.
So,
I again would recommend to keep the ball rolling quicker, to form some kind of committee that can stay on top of it and not so go long gaps of moving the process along.
We had a committee, and it was council, commissioners, sheriff, ex-sheriffs. Can't remember who it was, came up with who we wanted to hire, why we wanted to hire it, and they were all the best in their business. Then we couldn't afford it. So going back to committees, just starting over again and doing the 3 years' work,
not
is basically
starting
what
over.
they've done. I understand what you're saying, is to keep
You
going
reached your
forward.
accomplishment with the first committee. You decided you needed a new jail and you were gonna head forward. This is a building stage and a total different stage that we're at now, financing building. So I mean, the first committee I don't think was formed to do those items. It was decide whether you needed a jail and that. And I think they reached that. But decided we need a new jail.
It's often been said that a camel is a horse designed by a committee. Mess.
Well, he knows, like I said earlier, they said we can do 16.5, so we just, that's what we can work with.
Your financial, the company that you hired to do a financial analysis said you can't afford this.
This one is just new.
Right.
Right.
So, like,
But what I'm saying is we can take.
so what do you wanna do? I mean, that's the $600 million question, so we know we can't afford what's sitting on our desks. So, so how do we get from can't afford this to build something that we all agree that we need?
Right, that's why I'm saying you guys are allowing us to 16.5 all in, we just have to, we have to get something going. And maybe in the design it can be added on later.
I got a question. So if we did look at the build house lease option, looking at different financing, that's something Greg brought up. Would that be the commissioners that would drive that wagon, so to speak, Josh, do you think?
Well, we would need to do some research. The USDA funding is interesting because that is probably 200 and 250 basis points lower than what our bond rate would be, so that's a very significant. I had not heard that we were eligible to use that for a jail, so we definitely need to research that.
So would that be the council that would research it, you think?
Well, from a fiscal perspective, I think it would, yeah.
Okay.
And that would affect our, I'm gonna say bonding capacity, but you see what I'm saying? Like, if if we save 2.5%, we have more capacity. So that needs to be on us. But at the same time, we don't have a money tree. So, we have constraints about what we can spend, and I don't think there's anybody here that's ready to raise taxes on the residents of the county, so we have to figure out how this is gonna work.
Can I say one more thing?
You bet.
So, first, I wanna share a couple of things, and I know, I think, I don't wanna be the dead horse, because I think everybody's on the same page, but I want you to think, for a second, about what things are like in the community. My guess is, I and the officers all in the room, and Ms. Schimmel, and the investigator for the prosecutor's office, all have a different perspective, because we deal with it all day, every day, and we see the things that are really going on behind the scenes. So for any of you who haven't been, I invite you to come up to court and watch all day and see as a taxpayer and as a citizen how you feel at the end of the day with the people you thought should have gone to jail and didn't go to jail, because each day I have to make decisions, sometimes against the wishes of my community corrections director, Ms. Brophy, who is here, to say that person's not going to jail today because I know the sheriff's told me we're full. Nobody will take our inmates around us, what do we do? And he and I have had several frank conversations about that, and he knows my position, but at some point, we're putting our citizens, ourselves, your family, my family at risk, because we're releasing people who are a danger to all of us. Talk about whatever drug use you wanna talk about, they're out there driving, so be careful, use your headlights, and pay attention, because there are people we can't house, we can't put and take off the street because there's no place to put them. And to talk about the liability at the jail, just to drive that home, we have a duty to protect the inmates, but we have a duty to protect our employees, the jail staff, and the people on the road. And look at all these guys sitting in here in uniform, and when one of them gets hurt or killed because we haven't either staffed them properly or we're not transporting them properly, how do we look Drew Yoder's wife in the face and say, we could afford 16.5, sorry, we couldn't take that person off the road. And I think everybody around this table, myself included, would consider themselves a fiscal conservative. And I want you to ask yourself, going forward, have we been good stewards of our money for the last 15 years? I think the answer is no. And I think going forward, we have to make some tough decisions, and whatever that means. I'm not gonna say one way or another, but I want you to really think about it, and I want you to come sit up there
and see. And I want you to see what these guys go through every day and every night to make sure that we're protected. And I want you to think too, it's not just the criminal part. What do you do when somebody who doesn't pay child support, won't pay child support, doesn't show up to court, and the court issues a body attachment? What are you gonna do when we say, I'm not gonna pick them up, I'm not gonna issue a warrant? There's no room for them, and that, all of a sudden, it takes down the priority list. And that word spreads around the community. Why do you think all these violent criminals are coming here to do these things? One, they know that there are only a few officers on the road, and that it's an easy target. They can get in, they can get out easily in most cases. Think of the things, you know, that they could be doing, you know, if that word gets around, the things that will be going on. We know we're not going to jail in Carroll County, they're full. And so, you know, as a court, I have to, and Judge Diener makes those decisions. Am I saying everybody goes to jail? No. But the people that do deserve to be there, sometimes my hands are tied, and I can't do my job and protect the citizens of the community after the officers have done theirs. And that's scary for me, and I hope it's scary for you, and I think it is. But I hope you consider those things and really dig in and find a solution for this quickly, because we can't afford to wait, and we can't continue to cloak ourselves as fiscal conservatives and be good stewards of the citizens' money when we do nothing in this case, because we're gonna pay much, much more than that. So I hope you consider that and take that into consideration.
Judge, real quickly, I am in the 5th year of my time of service with the council, so that's a third of the 15 years you referenced in lack of stewardship. Can you quantify what you're suggesting has been done that would be poor stewardship of finances? And I'm particularly asking from my perspective, because as we just heard, there's a large sentiment that agrees with what you just said. I want to understand and better understand the 5 years that I've missed the mark.
Sure, I'm not saying that you've missed the mark. Well, I'm just saying from a broad overview, if we could have spent $10 million and solved the problem, is that better than spending $20 million? If we had, let's say we had the 20.5, then we could have done it for 10. Now it's costing us 25. Is that good stewardship of our money? If we could do it for 20.5 today, and we have to do it for 30.5 in 10 years, is that good stewardship of our money? I think the answer is no. I don't know who would disagree with that. And I'm not saying any of you have done anything wrong. I'm not saying there's a right answer. I'm just saying we've got to think about it, and we have to find a solution, because it's dire, and it's gonna cripple this county if something bad happens. So that's my feeling. And I feel too that I struggle not being able to protect the citizens or the people who need to be off the streets. And I have to, and daily, you can ask the sheriff, he'll tell you how many times we've talked, and we'll call, and we've had some heated conversations. Sheriff, that warrant's not an invitation. I understand the jail's full, I don't know what to tell you. He's like, I don't have any place to put them. Nobody around us will take them. And what do we do when that day continues and continues and continues? And it's not just COVID, but they're full, but we don't have any place to put them, we just turn them loose. That's the reality, whether it's right or wrong, that's the reality we're looking at in the future, and that's scary to me. So, anyway, thank you.
I just have one more thing to throw in, and that is back when I was on the council before being a commissioner, one of the first things we tackled was ambulance service. At that time, there was all volunteer ambulances around. And they were not able to get enough volunteers and enough people trained to be able to run adequate, ambulance service. But boy, it was a hard sell. There were members of the council who did not want to step up and take over that cost, and it is a very significant cost of running an ambulance service. I'll bet you right now, nobody in this room would say, I don't want you to have an ambulance service. I'd vote for no ambulance service. Nobody's gonna do that, but that was the choice, and it was a lot of money we had to take on. There were no ambulance garages fit, we didn't have any budget for ambulances, all that stuff. I think we're in the same situation now, only worse. And the only thing I would say to the judges, I don't think 30 million is gonna be 10 years away. I think 5 years away, we're gonna be looking at a $30 million jail here. So, we've got about 3 minutes of our stated meeting left. Some of us will be able to stay if any of you wanna talk to us. I guess our question to the council, to Mr. Clue and the council is 16 million, 16.5 million, all in, that's it, right?
That's what's been approved.
Huh?
That's what the council has approved.
Right.
Unless you wanna look at some ARP money or something like that.
Well, I think we can get a little money here, I don't know if it's $1 million, 3 million, I don't know what, but.
Was I remember a conversation, was the EDC ever contacted about helping with the jail also? Not the EDC, the.
RDC.
The RDC.
Yes, they
Yeah,
But they didn't have the, information that they needed to present that,
right.
so they haven't been here yet.
I offered to go and present it, but if Josh can do it just as well as me, I don't need to, I mean, he's an insider in the group, so he can present it probably better than I could, so.
I think we have to have numbers on what it's going to cost, and they're gonna have concerns on what's gonna go on the south side of the road and what side of the tile, water lines, and if you can, I can even. give
What
us-
we're talking about now is the area across the road south of Indiana Packers is being developed, looked at for industrial pursuits. And we have to have coming down to the Manor area, electrical, sewer, water, all that, an easement for that. And so,
And we're still working on that.
yeah.
We
We're
don't
just
have
trying to
the-
get a price of what.
We don't have the easement yet.
No,
We've
Okay.
been
and
working
it's
on
gonna
it.
be a
Well, the
tough one.
easement's not the money, it's the $1 million pipe and labor
Yeah.
to get.
Right.
No,
I mean, we've been in negotiations with the landowners, so.
and that's going nowhere, so it may get tougher than that. Because we have to have that easement.
Right.
We wanna work with you, we wanna do
Do you have a
whatever.
proposal? I mean,
Sure.
we would love to receive a proposal from you about, how you wanna move forward.
Okay.
Baker Tilly, the firm that you hired to do a financial analysis gave us a plan of what we can afford.
Okay. And that was at 16 and a half?
I believe so. So if you wanna spend more than that, we're gonna have to look at, do you want, is the commission willing to raise taxes? Is the commission going to make a recommendation to raise taxes? Or where's the money gonna come from if we're gonna go above that figure that our financial advisors are telling us?
Very good. And we wanna work with our architect to say, how much can we cut here yet?
Right, and so it's all, there's a lot of moving pieces, right?
Oh, there are, yeah.
I don't know, can you do a bond and private entities like he was talking about and stuff
Well,
like that? and all
USDA.
the same?
Yeah, I think we could, but
I
like
think we
said,
can reach
this
our
is
goal if we do that.
This is gonna take a minute to research
Oh, yeah.
all of our financial options, and we're more than willing to do that.
Well, there's one partial sentence here, Josh, that bothers me a lot on this, on what we got from Elevadis, and that is a clause that says, these are the costs excluding costs associated with financing. We've all bought a car or a house, and we know what the costs of financing are on it, so that,
I'll say, just to make the equation, that, say, $21 million equates backing that up to the 15.4, that once you backed out the bond issuance cost from the 16 and a half, or whatever number exactly that was, down to 15.4, that's the delta. We have to get the $21 million number up, or down to 15.4 to make it work.
okay.
So, that's a lot to cut out.
That would be like underwriting fees and things like that for the bond
That's
issuer.
what is